And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the IndieVerse. As per usual, if you have any questions throughout the session, please let us know by dropping them in the chat, and then we'll get to all of them at the end. Today, I'm joined by Poppy, and Poppy, I'll turn it over to you to give her a brief introduction.
Hi, everyone. As Kaylin said, I'm Poppy Kuroki. Nice to meet you.
Awesome. Nice to meet you and really nice to have you on. So like I said, just for anybody who might be rolling in now, nice to meet you. I'm just hearing myself on the other screen. So for anybody who might be rolling in now, if you have any questions throughout the interview, let us know in the chat and we will get to all those questions at the end. But the first question I have for you, Poppy, which I typically ask like everybody who comes to the IndieVerse, is everybody seems a little bit of a different like writer origin story. Like, how did you get into writing? What was your introduction to it, etc.? So I always kind of like to kick things off with like that. How did you get started in writing, and like really, what is your writer origin story?
I'm sure my answer will be the same as many others. Loving books as a child and writing since being a child without any of those inhibitions and self-doubt. So my mum gave me her old, like, really big computer. You know those old ones that are like white and huge and really heavy?
Yeah.
She like upgraded, so she gave me her like computer chair and desk and PC, and I would like write and type for hours. So I can type fast now because I was doing it when I was like 12 and I had a series. But looking back, it probably wasn't that good, but I loved writing. I mean, I still do, but especially back then.
That's awesome. It's so interesting to hear because like you said, like a lot of people's stories could be that, but like I've actually met quite a few people through doing the IndieVerse who've like come to writing later in life and realized later in life. So it's really interesting hearing about people's writing, like writer origin stories. So
right. Okay.
My next question is like a little bit of a follow-up. Like, when did you decide then, because it sounds like a passion that you've had for your whole life, like was there a specific point where you're like, oh, I want to do this professionally and like put out books? Or was that something that was more of a gradual build?
That was quite early on. I think people were asking me like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said a writer, and people were like, oh, okay. But it's like when Harry Potter was really big. I think a lot of people wanted to be writers around that time, like the mid noughties, I guess. I guess I jumped on that bandwagon as well. But yeah, I just always thought I would be a writer. I guess as a kid, I didn't know how hard it would be. Do you know what I mean? Like the competition and stuff. I just always thought, yeah, I'll be famous by the time I'm 18. Like, it's so embarrassing now, but the optimism was there, at least.
Oh, I was the same. I loved Christopher Paolini, who wrote Aragon.
Yes.
He was like a teen writer. And I was like, so I can do it.
Exactly.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. I was saying exactly. Yeah. Like, as a kid, you don't really, you have a kind of, the future's very bright when you're a child, right?
For sure.
No
so
one
what are you
wants to correct
you?
No one wants to correct you.
Yeah, no, definitely. So what are you working on right now? Tell us a little bit about that.
I just got beta reader feedback on a short story. It's an origin story of a character from my novel Oath, which came out in November. So I'll hopefully be releasing that maybe January.
Nice.
That'll be free to read as well.
That's so exciting. The beta reader feedback is always really fun. So in addition to writing your own books, you also do ghostwriting, which is really interesting. And I'm always curious to talk to folks who do like ghostwriting and editing, because I'm always really curious how like you get into those fields. So I was wondering, like, did you start ghostwriting before writing your own novels, or vice versa? Like, how did you get into ghostwriting?
No, I wrote my own books first. Since being a kid, wrote a fantasy trilogy when I was a teenager and stuff. But it's really fun. Like, I didn't plan to get into editing or ghostwriting, actually. it was kind of accidental. So editing was, I think a lady, she said like, oh, could you read this for me? I've already published it. And I said, yeah, sure. And I read it and I said, oh, just so as you know, there's a few typos, there are a few mistakes. And she goes, oh, are you an editor? And I said, no. She said, do you want to be? Do you want to edit for me? I'm like, okay. And then after that, like word spread, I suppose, among the, I haven't had hundreds of clients or anything, but I've had a few who have had for a long time. One writer I've had for like 6 years.
Wow.
And I've edited all his books. So that's been great. But it was only every now and then. It wasn't a full-time thing. I never made like a website or anything. It was always like a side gig because I was still teaching then. And with ghostwriting, I was editing a series, and I said to her like, okay, here it was one of those where there's like a typo on every sentence, which is fine. It's whatever, it happens. And I'm like, okay, here's some advice like for free, because I technically proofread, but I actually copy edit, or if I see something that doesn't make sense, I'll point it out just because I'm kind of a like perfectionist and I don't want to ignore something like that. And I said, oh, just so as you know, like you use a lot of like and thens, or try to add more character descriptions, try and do this. And she goes, okay, I'll tell my ghostwriter. And I was there like, a ghostwriter wrote this, and I didn't want to be judgmental, but I didn't ask her how much she paid. She told me voluntarily, and I'm thinking, I got paid like a fraction of that to fix all those issues.
Right.
If this person can write, and it was like very, the quality wasn't super high. It wasn't horrible, but you know, I don't want to be horrible, but you know. And I thought, okay, if they can do it, maybe I can. And then I made a profile on, you know, Fiverr, like a freelance website. And I've been doing that for just over 1 year, and that's my full-time income now.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And so
it's completely accidental on both counts.
I love that though. Those are such like, it's so interesting to like hear about like accidental things that happen. And with ghostwriting, that's so interesting. So have you found most of your work through Fiverr then, or through like word of mouth?
Most of it's on Fiverr, yeah. I was so surprised by, because I made the account. I thought, oh, you know, if I'm lucky, I'll get like one client in a month. That's my goal, I suppose. And I happened to start that right as the biggest hurricane, the biggest typhoon for years in Japan hit Tokyo. So we actually had to, what's the English word? Evacuate, thank you. I had to evacuate for 2 weeks to my husband's office. So all I had was my laptop. So I started then. So I had all this time. And I was really surprised. I got clients like right away. And I actually had to keep pausing it because I was getting too much work. So I've been really lucky.
That's amazing. That's
so lucky. Especially this year, because I worked part-time in a high school. And my contract ended, and not related to Corona, but they were like, oh, we're changing the curriculum. We want an art teacher. Bye. I was like, all right then. So then I started doing the ghostwriting full time, and I could do it at home. And it was just really good timing, considering it would have been really hard to find another teaching job this year. So I've been super lucky. So I have to thank that client with the with the all the and thens in her story.
What a cool story of how you got into that. And Fiverr, like, you're not the first person who I've heard has like found incredible like full-time income through Fiverr. So that's like really amazing. So I always have a question for ghostwriters, because I'm just always so curious, and I think it's because world building is my favorite part of writing. So like, what's it like to build other people's worlds? Like, what's that experience like? Are you able to separate yourself from it a little bit, or do you get as into it as you would with your own novels? I don't know. I'm just always curious.
So I'm not sure like what other people do, but my guidelines are you have to have an outline, beginning, middle, and end, and you have to have a world built. I'm not going to do that for you. I'll take your notes and write scenes, and I'll add stuff sometimes. Can I separate from it? Yes, I can, because it's not mine. Like some people have said, oh, have you ever written one that you wished was yours? And I'm just like, no, because it's not mine. You know, I can totally separate from that. That's not a problem. But some are really good. Some are weird, but a good challenge. And got a lot of like returning clients as well. Like I'm on the third book of one person. And some of them, they have really great stories, and I'm happy to help them bring them to life. But that's what brought me back to wanting to publish again, because I'd kind of given up on that. I'd had like bad experiences and was like, oh, I'll just stick to ghostwriting. But I was getting such nice feedback from people. I thought, oh, maybe I'll dust off some old stories and try publishing. And it's been fun.
That's so cool that it also brought you back to writing your own stuff. Yeah, I always find it so fascinating, and because I love hearing about, I think it must be really interesting because I love hearing about other people's stories and you get to play with them, which is really fun.
Yeah.
So I guess my follow-up to that is, what's your favorite part about ghostwriting?
Oh, well, I like to look at the outline and suggest things. I don't know, maybe some other ghostwriters don't do that, but I'm, like I mentioned before, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So I'll take longer than some ghostwriters. Like, so people will be like, oh, why'd you need 5 days for 3,000 words? It's because, like, one, I have other clients, and two, that's 3,000 good words you're going to get. It's not a first draft. Like, I'll write at least 2 drafts, sometimes 3 of it. I won't just write any old stuff and then send it, you know. What was the question? Sorry.
No, your favorite part.
Favorite part. Favorite part. Yeah, I like having the finished product and sending it over and then having them be all happy about it. That's a good feeling.
Yeah. And is there anything you find particularly challenging about it?
If I get a really weird story, like I've had a few that are just completely out there, and a lot of clients are not native speakers. That's why they hire a native speaker to write for them. And I've got one guy who he's just is a stream of consciousness, and he doesn't go back and change it. So it's very, very pidgin English. I have to kind of translate it before I can write it. But he's he's a really nice person, so I don't mind. That makes a difference too. If clients are really nice, I'll bend over backwards for them, you know.
For sure.
Keep that in mind. If you ever hire someone, be nice.
No, for sure. Yes, always definitely be nice. That's just so, anyway, the realm of ghostwriting is so interesting to me. Follow-up question, not one of the ones I sent you, but do you have particular genres that you like specialize in ghostwriter, or have you written a little bit of everything?
On my profile it says fantasy, but I've done like dramas, paranormal, romance. One was fantasy. People don't really seem to mind the genre that much. They see my reviews at first, I think. My prices are about the same as others. I think it might be a little higher now. I started off low and then like went up gradually. But yeah, people don't really see. They ask me first. They're like, "Oh, can you do this genre?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Because I read like all genres. But it's a good challenge. It's a lot of fun.
That's amazing. And I see there's some questions popping up in the chat, which is so wonderful. And I've got a few more questions, and then we're going to get to all the chat questions at the end. So you also do editing, and you kind of explained how you started in that, but I have a similar question about editing. Like, what's your favorite part of editing when it comes to editing for clients? What's your favorite part? Or do you do editing, or is it mostly ghostwriting?
Yeah, I do like editing, especially if it's a client I know. Like the client I've had for 5 or 6 years, like he's a really good writer, and he used to have a lot more typos, but I think he puts it through Grammarly first now. So where it was like every few lines, it's like 2 or 3 a page now, which is good. So I can actually enjoy the story while I'm proofreading it, you know. So,
yeah.
And I get to be like the first person to read it too. So he's like, "Hey, it's my new book," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, it was really good. I already read it." You know, so that's nice, getting like dibs on people's stories. That's always nice.
That's awesome. And is there anything that's like, I don't know.
Hear my stomach just.
No. I'm curious. Like, is there anything that's particularly challenging for editing? That's like different than ghostwriting? Because I feel like they must be very different, no?
Yeah, of course, if you're editing, you have to be way more meticulous on like small mistakes. I mean, like plot mistakes, right? Like, oh, he sat down twice in this scene or something. If you're ghostwriting, you can kind of course, I check for mistakes, but if some slip through the cracks, it's okay because it's also going to see an editor, right? But with editing, you're the final set of eyes, so you have to make sure it's all like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, the more experienced writer you get, the less likely you are to find silly mistakes like that.
For sure. No, for sure. A little bit of kind of like going back to ghostwriting just because I'm curious. Because I feel like I was listening to a podcast once and they were saying this about like translation and how they didn't realize that once they got their book translated, they would also have to get it edited. Like, do you ever encounter like people not realizing that the book has to be edited after it's ghostwritten?
I've never been asked about that because that's not my stage.
Yeah.
You know, if they didn't know that, then they haven't asked me about it. I mean, I don't really say to them, by the way, you should get it edited too, because that'd be weird. But I give it to them as clean as possible. Of course, there's going to be typos, but actually, one person did complain. Like, one person got back to me 2 months after I submitted it and said, there's a typo on page 14. And I'm like, okay, get an editor. Like, that was weird. But I'm going to just assume they know that I'm not going to give an edited, ghostwritten, perfect piece, surely.
Yeah, I'm just so interested in it because I was listening. Yeah, anyway, it just made me think of it because I was listening to a podcast once about someone who got their work translated and then realized
they didn't know it had to be edited. Yeah. Oh
no. And this wasn't like this was like a big name in like self-publishing, and I was like, oh, I suppose I didn't realize that either, but I didn't really think about it, you know. So,
if you don't,
you have to get an editor. Yeah. So my next question with regards to editing is you mentioned kind of in the format, you know, I get folks to fill out before we do these interviews that one of your expertise is in blurb writing. So do you do that for other folks, or is that just something that you really enjoy doing?
That's another like one of my gigs on Fiverr. So I have ghostwriting, editing, blurb writing, and I did have beta reading, but I kind of stopped doing that. So yeah, sometimes people can order a ghostwriting gig, and then they can add the blurb too. So that's like my favorite type because I've already written it, so I already know what the book's about. But sometimes people can buy like a blurb, and they'll send me their manuscript, and I'll read it and then make a blurb from there. I wrote one again, completely accidental. I was editing for someone, and they said, "Oh, I'm struggling with the blurb. Could you write one and I'll pay you?" And I was like, "All right, I'll give it a shot." And then I did it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I just changed one word. It's perfect." I was like, "Really? Great." And then thought, "Oh, might as well add it onto Fiverr." And then I've had quite a few orders, and they're always happy. So I just find I read about half the manuscript if I'm pressed for time. That's usually all you need for the hook. As long as you keep you find the hook and the character and everything, then you can make a half decent blurb. So
that's so awesome. I personally struggle very much with I struggle with blurbs. I think they're super fun to write, but I struggle with them. So when you approach a blurb, is there I mean, you kind of just described it. You read half the manuscript and look for the hook. Like, is that the approach you take when trying to figure out how to write a blurb? Like, what would you, I suppose, suggest we look out for when writing blurbs?
Oh, I guess like find for your own story, because I do think it's harder if it's your own story. 100%. I'd go with about find what's happening about halfway through or during the big incident where your characters, turn on their heads. And I like to end with a question, can she find the magical sword? Or is it too late? I like questions at the end. Of course, they're not absolutely necessary. And you can sometimes have a quote at the beginning too. I quite like those. A quote from the story at the beginning.
You mentioned that it's tougher to write your own blurb. Do you? I'm just curious about why that is, because like I just felt so validated there. Thank you. Stop writing your own blurb.
Sure, yeah. Why is it harder for your own? I'm not sure. I think because you want to add a lot for your own blurb. You're like, oh, this scene's really good. I want to add this in. Or this character's awesome. I want to have them in the blurb. You end up with a page-long blurb. I think it's one of those things where a different set of eyes is usually better, because they're reading the book for the first time, so they can identify the hook a little more. Whereas when you've read your own book 1,000 times, you're kind of tired of it, and you're like, I hate this book now. How can I make others want to read it? Right? You know what I mean? Not hate it, but you're kind of tired of looking at it.
Oh yes, I know exactly what you mean. So I've only got 2 questions left, so I'm just going to encourage folks in the chat to ask any questions that they have. I see a bunch in here already. The first is not one that I sent, but I think I ask it to a lot of folks who come on the IndieVerse. So I'm curious, what has been kind of your like most memorable writing moment to date? It doesn't have to be your favorite or anything like that, but just something that like kind of sticks out in your memory as like, this was a really cool part of my publishing journey.
Oh, it's a nice question, but most memorable writing or publishing moment?
Yeah, or it could be part of ghostwriting and editing. It sounds like you've had a lot of really cool different experiences when it comes to like
writing,
editing, ghostwriting, writing.
I don't know, like I guess with Fiverr you get the reviews, right? And I'm still on 5 out of 5. Like I'm still on like the perfect reviews, and it's very tense when you submit something for the first time and like with a new client, and you're like, they're gonna give me 5 stars, and then you have to wait, and then you can't see their review until you've written a buyer review for them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So you write it, and then you wait, and you're staring at the app like, come on, and then it'll say, they left a review, and then I know that's not really right. It is kind of writing related, but it's one bad review can like be a problem. But reviews in general, like reviews on your own books too, that's always feels good to get a nice review from a stranger.
I totally agree. And then the last question that I have before we jump into the chat here, because I see quite a few, is if you could go back to the moment before you hit publish on your first book and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
So I self-published for the first time like 10 years ago under like my maiden name, and like maybe other writers too. I didn't really know what I was doing, but like that's kind of in the past now. Like you can see them all on my author page, but only 2 of them are published, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose it would just be like research what you have to do before. Don't tell yourself you don't need an editor, because everyone needs an editor. It doesn't matter how gifted you are or how gifted you think you are. Get a professional cover, because I hired for my first ever book, I hired like someone from university, and I loved it. Nobody else loved it. Everyone was too nice to say. Yeah, like, but we learn from our mistakes, right?
For sure. I think that's like one of the best things about kind of being on this like writing journey is there's so much to learn.
Yeah. And some things you kind of have to learn by yourself too. Like even though someone can tell you, you still have to kind of take that journey by yourself and realize by yourself some things. But this time when I published A Bard's Lament in October, or the end of September, and Oath in November, I knew what I was doing this time. I did everything right, I hope, and it was a lot of fun.
And the next one's coming out in January.
Yeah, I think so.
That's
around
great.
January. Let's get myself in gear and make the edits.
And just a little bit of a plug for anybody watching right now, live or in the future, all of Poppy's information is linked down below. So please go to, I think your website, Instagram, and Twitter are linked down there. So go to that description box below.
Instagram's fun. I live in Japan, and I put like pictures of Japan up. So if you're interested in Japan, it's worth a follow as well.
I love Japan. I got to go to Japan in 2017.
Oh, where'd you go?
10 days with a friend of mine, and I love it. I love it. I think it's probably my favorite place on the planet.
Yeah, Japan's awesome. I was in, where was I in 2017? Tokyo, I think, living in Shibuya. Where were you?
We went to Tokyo. We also went to Kyoto, and that was kind of it, just because we had such little time.
Yeah, 10 days.
Yeah. We spent a day in Nara. I think I'm pronouncing that, but yeah, we didn't spend too much time there, but it was really, really great.
That's awesome. Yes.
I'm going to go back one day. I'm going to go back one day and
Let me know if you do. I'm only an hour from Tokyo, so.
Oh gosh, I will definitely let you know.
Thank you.
Yes, we had such a blast, and it was so wonderful. So we have some questions here from the chat. So I think Shanice asked a question here, but I think we got to it in just our conversation. But Molly is asking, what exactly do you do for ghostwriting? Do they give you an idea and you write it? So I think that was answered a little bit too, but maybe we can talk just about do you have specific requirements for the outlines that you receive, or is it just kind of what they want to send you?
Yes. So on the description, I say well, first, please contact me before making an order, which not everyone does. But you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. I can't write stories from scratch for you. Some people do. There are services on Fiverr where you can just say, "Oh, write me a disaster story," and they'll write you an outline from scratch. But I don't do that. You don't have to have every scene and every detail. Clients are different. Some clients have the dialogue already written. Some just have a very vague outline. As long as there's an outline, I can work from it. But once someone didn't contact me first and she just submitted half a page of notes and said, write me 10,000 words from this. And I had to do it because she'd already booked it. And if you cancel, it's like bad on your profile. But it turned out to be really good. And she's like a returning client. So it was a happy, not mistake, but it was a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's good. Like sometimes, because it's so vague, a lot of ideas come in. So it really depends on the subject. That was like a story about a dog. So that was actually really fun. Turned out to be fun. But I do not write from scratch for people. If I wrote from scratch, I'd just write my own books, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, the story about the dog sounds fun.
It was.
So Shanice here is asking, so how does Fiverr work? So Shanice does sensitivity reading and might try to move sensitivity reading over there. So maybe you can give us a quick overview of I don't know, how you set up a gig, or I don't know what they're called, on Fiverr.
Yeah, no, Fiverr is really easy to use. It's a really clean, nice website. I know there are other websites like Upwork, but I've not used them before. Fiverr, it's easy. You just make your profile. And one nice thing is that you don't have to choose from gigs that exist. You can make an entirely new gig. So if your specialty is sensitivity reading, I would say make the gig, research the prices of other people, and make yours slightly cheaper just at the beginning. Once you get some reviews, you can make it more expensive. I think a lot of people say they struggle to get clients, I think because they put their prices at the same. And unfortunately, you have to kind of my first ever gig was, I think I worked it out. Compared to how much I charge now, it was like, what was it, like less than a quarter of what I charge now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like that's how many times I've gradually put the price up. So that's my advice. But just go on Fiverr.com, Fiverr with 2 R's.com, make a profile. It's free. And make a gig, and yeah, you'll get started. It'll be on the website straight away. Put yourself to online so that yours comes up at the top of search. And good luck. Yeah, sensitivity reading, it's a good definitely. I haven't ever searched that myself, but I'm sure it'll be in demand. So definitely
That's a really good tip about putting yourself online so that you pop up at the top. So I guess there's an online, offline. Like if you're on the website, then it shows up that you're like online and available to chat right away.
Exactly. And you can get the app on your phone too, which is really handy. So if clients send you messages, you can check anytime. But yeah, you can put it, I am online, so you'll get that little green circle next to your profile, and people may be more likely to message you because they're like, oh, she's available to message back right away.
That's awesome. That's super interesting. Shanice was also asking about kind of like pricing for ghostwriting. So like, what's a good price to start at? And I think you might have touched upon that a little, but like you were saying like looking at the market and then going a little bit lower to start.
I went much lower because at the time I worked part-time, so that money was taking care of my like rent and everything. I didn't have the mindset at all of this might be full-time one day. So I just put it at pretty low because I thought, okay, we're going to need reviews first. Everything. I just had like 0 orders, 0 reviews. You got to like earn trust first, you know. So it depends, like, because I know the first work I did, like I think I did 1,000-word free sample, which I do not do anymore. So you have to kind of work really hard at first. And you got to make sure you don't get taken advantage of or like undersell yourself. You got to find a happy balance. So because, like I said, we were evacuating, we didn't have our TV, we didn't have a lot of stuff. I was happy to do quite a lot of work for nearly free because I had time. But of course, you got to think about your own schedule, your job, your kids, your pets, whatever. Like, I would say put it low at first, see how that goes. If you don't get any orders, maybe try a little lower, mess around with the description a little bit. Try and use more keywords, stuff like that. You can also advertise the gig, right? Like on Twitter and stuff. But I've never had to do that. So yeah, I just say just go for it and good luck. And message me anytime. I'm actually on Fiverr, so you can like message me as a fellow seller, and I'm happy to give advice.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you took the approach a little bit of like, just for this question that Shanice is asking, like really starting. I mean, it sounds like your approach was just start a little bit low and then ramp it up.
Yeah, the timing for me was great because I started in October 2019. So until March, I had another job. So I wasn't doing it that much. But then after March, I didn't have a job anymore. So I can't remember. I think it was the number of reviews that made me. It was also the quality of the reviews, like people saying, "Oh, she's like the best writer I've ever hired," and stuff like that. They actually were saying stuff like that. So I thought, okay, I'm worth more then, and a little bit by bit, putting the prices up. And then people were still messaging me happy to pay. And I'm like, oh, that was double what it was a month ago, but people are still happy to pay and add tips too. One thing you should know too is Fiverr takes 20%. So if you sell a gig for like $10, you're actually going to earn $8. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah, 20% is a big chunk, eh?
It is, yeah, it is. But it's kind of can't be helped. I think Upwork takes 30. I might be wrong though, but 20%.
Yeah, Upwork, for the life of me, I tried to go on Upwork once, and it just like, I suppose like I had all the credentials I thought that they could possibly wanted. They were like, no.
Oh, right. You have to apply for Upwork, don't you? Yeah, I think I was halfway through the application and thought, I can't be bothered with this. Like Fiverr just lets you, because I've heard people who've had bad experiences with Fiverr, and maybe part of that is because you don't need to pass anything. You can just make a profile. But I never really let that keep me down. I let the reviews speak for myself, so that's what you got to do. You just try and be professional too, because I've also bought things on Fiverr and people have been very, not rude, but talking to me like I'm a friend, not a client. And it kind of annoyed me a bit. You have to be like, thank you so much for getting in touch. I'm very happy that you have to be kind of try and be professional as well. It just makes you look better as well and more trustworthy.
Makes you like stick out from the crowd and stuff like that.
Yeah, like people have been like I've said, oh, hello, I'd really like a format service or something. And like, okay, how many pages? And I'm just like, maybe it's because I live in Japan as well, where customer service is really good. And I'm just like, I'm the client.
I don't know. It happens. I've worked with vendors like in my professional life. I don't think I've ever worked with someone like in my offices who will, that like, I don't know, just like not a complete sentence back. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like with clients I've worked with for ages, it's totally fine to be a bit more informal.
For sure.
if I'm giving advice to a new Fiverr seller, I would just say over polite is better than not polite enough, especially at first. You know, just if they get turned off by professionalism, they're probably not a good person to work with anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I worked really, really hard. The first few months I didn't earn that much at all, but now I'm earning way more. Mm-hmm. So it's not like get rich quick or anything, but if you want to put in the time and effort, it can be a full-time gig. And during this pandemic, it's really important to have an income at home.
Mm-hmm. So. No, that's awesome. We've got another question here because I think we mentioned, or you mentioned Grammarly a couple times. So do you think Grammarly is a good editing tool that people should kind of like use to run their work through?
Yeah, if you've got like an article you want to publish or a story, you can definitely use the free version like Grammarly.com. It'll pick up typos, but it won't pick up everything. Like sometimes like using the wrong where or the wrong your, they won't pick that up usually. But definitely run it through for a starting point, but you'll still need an editor. If you're only publishing like a blog post, it's okay. You don't need to really hire an editor for that because you can go back and change stuff. But with a story, yeah, definitely get a human to look at it.
Awesome. And I think this was the last question. That was the last question. So if anybody has any more questions, please let us know. I'll just give a moment or two for anybody to write anything that's left in the chat. But I think this was super interesting for me. I don't think I've ever chatted with anybody on the IndieVerse before about the actual kind of mechanism through which people engage in like ghostwriting and editing. So it was really interesting to learn about Fiverr and how you can kind of like stand out from the rest of the crowd on Fiverr.
Yeah, I've never asked about it on an interview either, so it's a completely new experience for me too. Thank you.
Oh, well, no problem. I feel like sometimes on the IndieVerse we go down odd side quests when it comes to the conversation. So that's really interesting. But before we go, and just while anybody drops any additional questions or comments you might have in the chat, I want to turn it over to you for a brief moment just to talk about your kind of upcoming book that you're working on and where we can go ahead and follow you.
Oh, okay. So yeah, my writer's name is the same as on the screen, Poppy Kuroki. I write fantasy, dark fantasy with kind of dark themes, which is lots of fun. And I also have a travel blog, poppyinjapan.com, same as my Instagram. So if you like Japan, be sure to check it out. And I also write articles too, video game guides and stuff like that. So if you want to follow me, Instagram, just come and say hello. I always say hi to everyone. If you have questions about Fiverr too, I'm happy to talk about that. My actual Fiverr page is fiverr.com /Poppy R. So the R is actually like my maiden name, first letter, and I can't change it, which is fine. But yeah, it's POPPYR. So if you want to check out my profile on there, that's fine too.
Awesome. And I think to end things off, we've got one last question, and it's why did you choose to self-publish versus going through a publishing house?
Would you like to go first?
Oh, it's for you. I mean, your interview.
I like the freedom that comes with self-publishing. You get the final say on everything, like the cover, the subtitles, the blurb, and everything. And you don't have to fit a schedule really either. Like, I don't know if any of you have heard of Rebecca Ross. I love her books, The Queen's Rising. That's one of my favorite books ever. And she first got published in 2017, I think. And I loved her book. And I remember her putting on Instagram or something that she was like really stressed out because her editor was breathing down her neck for the next book. But if you're an indie author, you can publish and write at your own pace, which is nice. Because I ghostwrite for a full time, for a living. The last thing I sometimes want to do at the end of a day is sit down and write. So that's why I would self-publish. It's quite hard to get into traditional publishing as well. You need to tick a lot of boxes. You need to write what publishers think they can sell. Whereas if you're a self-publisher, you can kind of write about whatever you want and find your fans that way.
I would echo the exact same thing. The freedom and choice is very nice. Poppy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I had a really good time.
Yeah, so do I. And it was so lovely having you. And I think people watching learned a lot. I see there's quite a few people watching live, and then hopefully people catch the replay and learn all about ghostwriting, editing, and blurb writing, and Fiverr apparently. So
Yeah.
no, this was really great. I really appreciate you taking the time this evening.
And thank you everyone for watching the video as well. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next episode of IndieVerse. Bye, everyone.
Bye.